Good. Welcome to another round of Voices of Resilience. I'm excited that you're here. And if you're watching it later, I'm excited that you're watching it later too. So my name is Nathan Hofer. I am the Director of Campus Operations for the Lost&Found Association. If you don't know who we are and you're just here because you love our guest today, the one and only Kim Gustafson, who we'll introduce momentarily, that's great. But we are an organization that is focused on building preventative mental health structures by building resilience in young adults. So we focus on the front side of mental health. We focus on building these things and providing networks of support, advocating well, and self skills, as well as research and community engagement to make sure that when hard times come, as we know they do, and they have this year in an abundant manner, that we are prepared to handle those things, and we can live in a world without suicide or self-harm someday. So that's our goal. That's what we're about. And I'm so thankful that you are here with us today. So I'm going to bring in our guest. We have Kim Gustafson, who is, I say this every week, a good friend of mine, old friend. We hadn't reconnected for years. Went to school together at South Dakota State University. And now Kim is an instructor there and is in charge of the leadership development program there for the leadership development minor. So Kim, welcome to our live cast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, Kim, why don't you just tell...
appreciate.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I think we have a little delay, so I'll just pause a little more next time.
Yeah, so I have been at SDSU for 8 years teaching. This is kind of hard to believe that it's been 8 academic years. And I started just teaching in the leadership program, and they have a leadership minor here. And then I also teach in the leadership and management of nonprofit organizations minor. And then about 4 years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we started a leadership and management of nonprofit organizations major. My former supervisor was the one that spearheaded that particular cause. And then because I teach in the minor, brought me into that experience as well. And so we're continuing to grow that minor or grow that major. And we had our first graduate here in August. And she's going to grad school at SDSU. She liked it so much here that she is deciding to stay. And then we have another graduate in December, and she already has a job lined up in a nonprofit in Sioux Falls. So pretty exciting stuff that I can finally talk about where our graduates are going in that program when I'm visiting with potential students and their parents.
Well, that is so awesome. What a cool time to be a part of a new program, a new opportunity for students at SDSU and in the region, and to now be able to see the fruits of that labor. That's really cool. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, can you share just a little bit more? I mean, selfishly, I want to learn more about this program. I know we have folks who are USD alums and NDSU alums and all sorts of other alums. But, Kim and I are both SDSU alums, so I definitely want to hear more about this program and what the goals of this are, because, being a leader is hard. It's tough, and so I would love to hear more about this program.
Right. The program wasn't in existence when both of us were at SDSU. I think if it was, we both would be enrolled in the program, but the leadership minor didn't exist until I think a couple years after we had graduated, which is sad, but now fun because I get to teach in those classes. And really what we're trying to focus on in the program is helping students understand what their strengths are. I'm not a Gallup certified strengths coach. You can become one. I'm not. I just really enjoy reading all their books and articles. And I work with someone on campus that is a certified strengths coach to make sure the activities are in a line to help students grow about themselves. And I just really believe strengths are important to just have an understanding of who you are. And I know the topic or the theme is resiliency. And when you first told me about that topic, I got thinking, how am I resilient? I don't know. I don't feel like I'm very resilient because I'm not adaptable. That's like 33 on my list of 34. And then I realized that I can use my discipline and my focus and achiever and consistency. I like routines. I can set up new routines. And I like to have plan A, B, C, and D in case they all fail. And then I can resort to E. And so I can use my strengths to be resilient. And I like to give those examples in class. And so I'm just trying to help the students understand what they're good at and how maybe they thought these were weird quirks about themselves, but really there's a name to them, and how they can be an asset to whatever their future career is and their leadership potential. And oftentimes that helps them gain confidence in their abilities and in themselves. And then the other assessment we use is the Student Leadership Challenge assessment. There's 5 practices of being an exemplary leader. And we introduced that in Leadership 210, the basic class. And again, it's talking about what should you be doing to be an exemplary leader. Like, we don't want you to be a mediocre leader. We want you to be a exemplary leader. And having a strong understanding of who you are is one of the first steps in knowing, like, what do I stand for? What am I passionate about? And then from there, you can figure out where you want to take action.
I love that. I love that so much. And, Kim, I think you're right. If this minor had been present when we were on campus, at least you would have been in there. I probably wouldn't have been. I don't think I would have felt qualified at that time in my life. And I still don't in a lot of ways for that kind of a role. But I think it's awesome that that's there. And before we go any further into this, I see we have some live viewers here. And if you have questions for Kim or comments or anything like that, please post them in the comments. We'll be able to bring them up and interact with you. I know we already have you on screen, and many of you would probably not want to be on screen anyways. But if you have a question or a comment or anything you want to contribute to the discussion we're having today, please don't hesitate to throw it in the comments. We're happy to bring those into our conversation sphere here and engage with those. So that's my 2 cents for anyone watching right now. And if you're watching later, feel free to put comments in anyways. We'll get back to them. But as you mentioned, your leadership class and the things that you do with your leadership stuff, I love strengths. Adaptability is my number 4 or 5. Yeah, 5, number 5 last time I took it. So I chuckle because discipline, last time I did the full thing, was my number 36. I was like, that makes sense. I get that. But I also know that, as you mentioned, leadership is so dynamic, and you can lead with your strengths from any place. Now, when you're talking about this leadership, you had a class that had to be, they were in the midst of, 2 months away from being done during COVID, and they still had some pretty intensive projects that they had to complete. And that's actually what got me reconnected to you, Kim, was this project of your leadership class that I read about. And I'd love it if you could share a little bit about that and how your students were able to kind of bounce back from, this ultimate curveball that we're all facing. But I know students in particular really felt that as that transition was pretty jarring, pretty sudden, and a lot of unknowns, as we all dealt with. But students left for break and didn't get to come back. That's something we've talked about many times on our cast here. So I'd love to hear about the experience you had with your students and what they did and what they gained through that, and how they pushed through that to succeed.
Yeah, I'm so thankful we had the first 8 weeks of the semester together, because I think this would have been even more disruptive if we wouldn't have got to establish relationships, and they wouldn't have been able to meet their team members and get a game plan together before we left for spring break. And so as the teacher, we were all of us were transitioning online, and I just had 1 week ahead of them to figure out how to revamp my classes. And I was constantly struggling with, do I have them do the service project? Do I not have them do the service project? So the first thing I did was I just asked them, like, where are we at with the service project? Well, some of the class had already done theirs and got it completed before they left for spring break. And then some of them hadn't. So I was like, well, we kind of just got to go with it because half of you had it, half of you didn't have it.
I would have been in the hadn't category if it had been me. I would have been like last minute.
That's why I partner people together based on their domains, based on their strengths. So strengths has these different domains that they fall into. So there's the executors like me. I like to get things done. I like timelines. I'm the first one that has the agenda. And then so I had people that have those strengths. And then there's the influencers that are the communicators like you, Nathan. The people that got woo, they have communication. They're the ones that can sell ideas. Then we have the relationship builders that they're the ones that can crack a joke when it's tense, and they're usually making people feel comfortable and relating to them and including them. And then we have the strategic thinkers that are like, okay, what's the big picture? What's the most efficient way we can get this done in the time frame that we have? And so we had spent time in class exploring those domains, really getting them to think about how those apply to them, how can they use it in the team setting. And that really came in handy when they had to work together and execute this project remotely. And that's where I was thankful we had met for 8 weeks during the semester. But they really, the students deserve all the credit. They did some amazing things. One group, and then they were everywhere too in the US. They weren't just all here in Brookings. They were in multiple states, different time zones. So some of the projects I remember that came out of it were different than any of the other semesters because they really saw needs during the pandemic. One, they had set up a virtual or a online Google form that people could nominate healthcare workers, and then the group would in the form they could write their address, the person's name, they could say who was nominating them, and then a short little message that they wanted to send to that particular healthcare worker to thank them or show appreciation. And then they shared it on their social media page. And so that was a way for them to just have a small role in saying thank you and showing appreciation for those essential employees at that time. And then they had to come together. So like one person created the Google form because that's what they were good at. Another person was excellent at mail merging. And so they were the ones that led that. The other person was good at designing the postcard that they sent out. And so they each had their role, and they had to learn how to set up a Zoom meeting to communicate and figure out how to best execute this project. And I was always available for questions, but it was really up to them to deliver on it. Another group, they were like, okay, now these parents are homeschooling their kids and they're stuck at home all together in the winter. What are we going to do? And so they came up with different activities that parents could do with their kids with basic household items. And so one student was really strong at drawing. And so she educated and videoed herself drawing different, like the jackrabbit and drawing different things, because that was what she was passionate and good at. Another person was really good about science. And so they had a science experiment that they led. Someone else was really good at like crafting or games. They were competitive. And so they had a game that families could play. So they really used what they were passionate about too. Another thing that someone else did, another student, this was in a different class. The poor students that were in 3 classes with me, I don't know how they survived because they're all project based, but they did a great job. Another student, I don't know. Another student, she wanted to do something with food insecurity. When we were no longer in Brookings, she's like, okay, I'm going to be an ag teacher and I have all this ag knowledge. So she created different lesson plans for various age groups. One was about meats and one was about growing plants, and shared those on her social media sites. And parents were asking her to download them. if they could download them. They shared it in like different mom groups, and she's like, this reached way more people than I thought what it would originally do. So it was they deserve all the credit. They rose to the occasion. They saw what the needs were at the time, and then they were creative and came up with some really amazing projects.
And I had a couple of thoughts based on that here. One, Kim, you are an exemplary example of a leader, because you are, I know you would never say it, but I know you gave a significant amount of time and energy in supporting and directing them, but you'll never own it, and you'll give them all the credit. And I think that is such a powerful part of leading, is empowering your team, your people, and celebrating their successes. And even though you know that you might have had a hand in it or several hands in it, I know that's a great sign of a leader. So I think your students are quite lucky in that. And two, I wanted to throw this little comment up here from our friend Sarah Tashin. She's saying that she's appreciating the gratitude that your students showed for essential workers during that time. I think that's a really great way to show kindness. And Sarah, you stop it. What do you say about me? You cut it out. No one wants to read that stuff. Get it out of here. But I think that's such a cool opportunity and experience. And I had a question for you that I'm going to ask. And then I do have a question from our comments that we were hoping to, I'll ask in just a second here, Kara. You're talking about how hard it was for your students in that time. I'm just curious, you were having to still teach. You still had to be a leader to leaders, help guide them, support them. And so how was that transition for you? How did you remain a positive force? And like you said, you were a week ahead of them, having to turn everything online. I distinctly remember I was supposed to come to SDSU March 16th, that Monday, to meet with some folks in the Counseling and Human Resources Department. Or Counseling and Human Development has changed. They took out the R. And as I was going to go, they're like, oh, we're not going to be able to meet because we have to take the week here to figure out how we're turning everything online. So my question for you is how did that work for you? How did you maintain your ability to lead, your sense of positivity, your sense of mild sanity, being an instructor for multiple students, having a family, all that stuff?
Well, I was thankful that my daycare stayed open during that week when the students were still on extended spring break, because they closed for a few weeks right after that. So I worked insane hours. I was up way early and worked when my kids went to bed, because I knew if I didn't work on it the week when they were not there, I would not get anything done. And I realized I used my strengths. I know it sounds cheesy and I keep repeating it, but I used my strengths and like discipline, focus, achiever, consistency. I thrive in getting things done. And so I just made to-do lists and like, okay, this day you need to get these things hammered out, because if you don't, you're not going to have time to do them any other time. So there's no time to waste. You have to just get going. So, everything else kind of in life just went on hold. And my husband, he works from home already. So, he helped out just a ton in the house and like pick up and drop off with kids, or like if I had to stay up late and work on something. We worked as a team throughout this whole thing. If I wouldn't have had him, then I don't know what we would have done. So I just really used my strengths and just tried to get us. And then also, like when we did go back live with classes, I was honest with them with what was going on in my life and my kids. I don't know how many Zoom recordings they were in, and it wasn't probably grandparenting in those recordings. And so I tried to not take myself seriously, and I just really tried to think about, okay, I'm only one person. What can I get done in that time frame that we have? And I tried to have a heart, and empathy is not one of my top ones either. So I really tried to use my strengths to be empathetic with what others are going through, and just always having communication with everybody and trying to create a consistent process. Kara was one of the students last semester. Her project was the one that had different, the science experiment, the drawing. That was her group that had done that. So she can maybe offer other advice of like how we all made it together. And Kara also, we were supposed to go to Italy together last spring in March, but then the pandemic hit and I had to have back surgery in November, so I didn't, or December, so I wouldn't have been able to go too. But Kara had to be resilient in our trip getting canceled. So yeah, it's been quite the year.
Yeah, I'll pull up Kara's question here in a sec, but I do have one unrelated question. When you mentioned your top 5, where's responsibility in your top 5?
I don't have it.
Is it in your top 10?
I don't know where it's at in my top 10.
I was just
it's
curious.
Probably up there.
I was just curious because I was like, achiever, I could see you being an achiever, responsibility, make sure that everything gets done well, but it has to be done to your standards. And I remember you know, and by the way, your husband sounds like a pretty awesome dude. I guess it's all right that you changed your last name from Boom. I'll accept it. Here's Kara's question. So how have you been incorporating project-based learning into hybrid/online classes this semester? Because that's something that I think students are probably struggling with too. Like they're having to learn, like nothing looks the same. And if this is your first year, you don't know what normal will look like.
Well, it hasn't really changed. I still am having students go and volunteer with different nonprofits for the Intro to Nonprofit Management class. Just that, I mean, if they don't feel comfortable, then find a virtual volunteering opportunity, because there are some nonprofits that they're not even back in the office themselves, and so they have different virtual opportunities or outside opportunities, that events that are happening outside that they can participate in. So that's the class, and the nonprofits were open to it. I double checked with all of the ones in Brookings before the semester started. Is that something you feel comfortable with? And then made sure I asked the students too if this is something they felt comfortable doing. And I was upfront at the beginning of the semester that was one of the requirements. For the other classes, 310, I teach in the spring, but the team development class, in that class, students have to work in a team, again, based on their strengths, and they are coming up with team building activities for the class and facilitating those. And so I'm just using it as a teaching opportunity of like, you get to use technology and have to be thinking about how are you going to be inclusive of those students that are online through Zoom that day. So I'm just really working with them and brainstorming with them of how can we tweak, or these are the things I've learned we can do on Zoom. And like just on Tuesday, a student figured something out on Zoom that I hadn't been able to figure out all semester. She's like, well, let's just try it, when we were working in class. And so she helped me discover something that they wanted to use on their project. And so we're just all working together in the classroom, and like, we'll just figure it out, I guess, when it happens. So I'm still including all them. I use a lot of Google Docs and a lot of breakout rooms in the classroom. So just like today, we had an activity in one class where we sorted these different steps. Well, I had created a Google Doc so the online students could use in their breakout room, and then the in-classroom students, they had the paper copy of the handout that they could use. So just really being prepared about, okay, how are we going to make sure I'm including both groups, trying to provide lots of examples in the classroom. I don't know, trying to think what else I do.
That's it. That's all you do. My gosh, all those 75 things that you just listed. That's it. You mentioned something that I want to get into, but before I ask about it, I had another thought question. You are in one of your major roles is developing leaders, and leadership is often really glamorized as like, you're in charge of this, that, or the other. But I think most folks don't really know how difficult it can be to be a leader and to be one who is leading well. I'd say I've learned, and I don't know that I've done it. I know I've often not done it well, and learned through my own struggles and failings and things like that, and what to do differently next time. So can you share a little bit about what your experience has been, leading leaders, teaching others to lead, and maybe what are some of those things that that they are going to face as a leader that you can't really prepare them for, other than to say, hey, it's going to be hard. uh, like, what are some of those things that you've been able to maybe get feedback from students on, or you've seen, or about, because I know you are a great leader and a great one to share in this commentary.
I think just as many experiences as I can provide them while they're in college, to try out these different leadership opportunities. That's why all my classes are pretty much experiential, because I just think if you want to be a leader, and we're learning all these things, yes, you can learn them, but until you actually practice them and try them out, it's really hard to know what works and what doesn't work. So it's always, we do a lot of projects and a lot of experiential pieces, because then we can learn about the concepts first, then we can try them out. And then there's always a reflective or multiple reflective pieces that are included in the class. And so oftentimes I'm asking them, like, how did you see your strengths? Or what did you learn from this experience? And how can you apply this to your future career? Or how can you apply this to a student organization? Or how can you apply this to your family? Or sometimes I just give them lots of choices and then they pick what's most applicable to them. But I think having that reflective piece is helpful. And then the other thing I do is I'm pretty honest about me and my failures, and I don't have it all together all the time in class or in life. And so I try to be real and not sugarcoat what you might be faced with in life. And sometimes I think that helps. And I'm human too. I make mistakes. And so I tell them about the mistakes, or I screw up in class especially with this technology. I mean, it's almost like humorous every day in class of like what Kim's going to do wrong in technology. So we joke around about it. Humor can help a lot of times with learning. And I think, I don't know, that's usually what we focus on.
Yeah, I was just saying, I used to think I was pretty tech savvy, and then now apparently I don't know how to use Zoom at like all. I just big silly fool when it comes to it. Turns out I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. I always thought I was pretty tech savvy. And one thing I'll say that I've thought about too with leadership that I learned the hard way, and I'll just throw my 2 cents in here, is that sometimes it can be kind of lonely, and it feel this sense of isolation, especially when you get out there in your first job and you get to lead, because you've done something like what you've built for these students, Kim, and you've given them a great base for success, and you get put into a role as a leader right away, which is awesome and such a great testament to the work that they've done and that you've put into that. But it's also so hard when all of a sudden you're leading others and you don't realize that you're not in the same boat as they are, and there is that separation. And that's something that I definitely learned the hard way. Was like, yeah, it's hard to be like, I don't get to have the same level of interaction that I thought, especially when you come like up through an organization. I don't know why. I was thinking of Friends when you were talking. I love me some Friends, and when Chandler gets promoted and all of a sudden all the people he used to joke around with behind his back were joking around about him behind his back because he was the boss now. And I was like, there's some truth in that, and that can be an issue that can be, separating in that. And that's something that, depending on your personality, your strengths, if you're a communicator, includer, woo kind of personality that wants to be around all the people all the time, that can be really hard. It can be really tough. So I know that, I think it's great that you're so transparent about things. That's a huge way to help develop and build that. So that's great. And in the, you know, the spirit of transparency, you say you've shared about some of the hardships that you deal with and you've dealt with, and you kind of touched on it already. But you mentioned back in December you had back surgery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's an intense thing to go through, I would assume. And so, how has that affected you and your life and your work? And then, that's a significant thing to deal with.
Yeah, the semester just abruptly ended last fall. So I'm hoping to make it through this semester. And then last spring, we abruptly ended. The students that had me the first time last academic year, they gave me a hard time. They're like, do you just like get sick of us at a certain point and then you just leave? Like, I know,
Yeah,
I got a good track record, two
you're like, yeah,
semesters in
yeah.
a
Let me
row.
let me hold on a second. You're right. I'm tired of it. Let me have back surgery and somehow engage a global pandemic. All right. I mean, if you have that power, Kim, please don't do it anymore.
No, I won't. I won't. Um, yeah, it was pretty disruptive. Yeah, I had to have emergency surgery because I couldn't feel my legs. The nerves had been cut off so bad that I could barely walk with my right leg, and still am in physical therapy for that because I can't walk correctly. And I've been relearning to walk for 10 months now. And it's a 2-year journey in trying to get better with it because I just have so much muscle atrophy from the numbness and not being able to feel my legs. And yeah, so that definitely is requiring resiliency. And again, I wouldn't be able to make it through without my husband and my family, my in-laws and my sisters and my parents. I went and actually lived with my parents for 2 weeks after surgery because I couldn't lift over 5 pounds and I have 2 small kids. And so I wouldn't have been able to do anything with them. It was just a lot of asking for help, which I am an achiever and I like to do things to my standard and I like to do things I don't like to ask for help. And so it made me really stop and think about, okay, I can't do this. I need to enlist others. And I had to be transparent with the students too that I can't do certain things, and they were so great in the spring semester. They had noticed that I was struggling just getting around the classroom, and they were like, how about we just collect the papers for you, Kim, and just hand them to you instead of you hobbling around. They didn't say hobble, but instead of you just trying to collect them like you used to, why don't we help you out? And so they were all great with helping me out and being understanding if I just didn't have the energy. And but I just have again been relying on my strengths of discipline and okay, I want to get better. I want to walk. I want to be able to keep up with my kids. I want to push the stroller. I want to mow the lawn without any problems because I can't do those things very well yet. And so having a goal of like, this is where I want to get to and not really giving up and being super determined and using that achiever and focus to hone in and what I needs to be done every day in my therapy plan. And yeah, I know I just keep saying strengths, but I really just believe that once you know what they are in your life, they can just be used in so many different aspects: parenting, your faith, recovery from surgery. And it also, I think the surgery made me empathetic towards the students and things they might be going through, or just things that suddenly come up in their world, things you can't plan for. So I think that's made it maybe definitely more empathetic as a teacher than what I was previously.
Mm-hmm. And something you mentioned, I am not an achiever, but I know people who are, and I know that the worst, not the worst, the most difficult thing for that personality type, or not personality, that strength. One of the most difficult things is to need someone else to help you. So when you asked for help, how did that feel internally? And then what happened when you asked for help?
people were more than willing to help. I just had to ask them. I know. I just had to ask them. Like, my husband travels a lot, and in January, I was only 6 weeks past surgery, and our family doesn't live in Brookings. And so I had to ask our daycare teacher if she could watch our kids overnight, because I was like, there's no way I can teach from 11 to 6 straight with no breaks and then still come and pick up my kids, make them supper, put them to bed all by myself. I was like, there's no way. I can't do it. And so I had to ask her to watch them. And she's like, sure. Yeah. And now they always want to stay overnight at her house. I'm like, we can't have sleepovers all the time at daycare. And so just they like brought food. They were so just willing to help. And so I just need to keep that in mind, that people want to help.
Mm-hmm. And I would, follow-up question: if others asked you for help, would you help them?
Oh yeah, yes, I would.
Anyone have done that in a heartbeat? And I think that's something that, like I said, I know about you. I've known you for, golly, 2005 is a long time, Kim. That's gross. I don't want to talk about it. But I just think in general, we in this region, we don't know how to ask for help well. We feel bad burdening others. We feel like, oh yeah, I don't want to ask for help. And yet time and again, when you see people asking for help, you see them having one thing in common: they get help. Mm-hmm. It's just that taking that step towards asking. And I think that's such an incredibly powerful part of your story, that you had to do something that was totally against your nature, and ask for help. And like I said, you got it. And I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I would guess that was pretty hard though. Cause I mean, how old are your kids now?
They are 5 and 2, almost 3. So they would have been 2 and 4 at the time. Yeah. So pretty little. They didn't really understand what was going on with mom.
Yeah. And I mean, our daughters are, almost 4, almost 1. So similar aging. And I think how hard that would be just to know that you want to do stuff with your kids. You want to hang out with them, you want to hold them, and just physically not being able to. I can imagine that was incredibly difficult for you.
Yes, at least they were old enough they could climb on my lap, because my husband had hip replacement surgery about 4 years ago, and our son he was 1 at the time, so he was younger than Emerson, and he didn't really get like why dad couldn't lift him in and out of the crib or anything like that. But so at least now they like understood, like, oh, we got to be careful with mom, and like would understand how to climb in my lap. If they would have been any younger, like having a newborn or an infant, we would have had to have someone live with us permanently for 6 to 10 weeks, because like I could not have cared for. I could barely take care of myself.
Yeah, and that's tough. And like I said, then on top of it, you're still dealing with all of that, and then you had to deal with being at home all the time, and COVID, as we all are sick of talking about. Yeah, well, you have been through a lot in the last 12, not even 12 months, 10 months. Mm-hmm. That's so. What has, I mean, you still seem positive, happy, excited about what you're doing. What has kept that passion going for you in the midst of, I mean, legitimately things that would knock people on their butts, things that would keep people from moving forward at all. And you're still, from the outside perspective looking in, you still seem to be the same joy-filled person who is pushing hard and cares for others well. And still succeeding. So what has been present for you to be able to stay Kim?
I just keep trying to remind myself that God has a plan and he's in control, and he's doing all this for a reason. And just surrounding myself with strong people that can support me in so many different aspects, whether that's like, because of COVID, my friend and I, we have this Snapchat morning devotional that we do every morning. And that we started that during the pandemic, and we're on our devotional book number 3. So that's kind of crazy. And so that's been nice to have a connection with others just briefly in the morning to share our thoughts on the devotional and just God and the plans he has for us. And so that's been really helpful. The other thing is just trying to think of the positives that the pandemic has brought. For me, my husband doesn't travel now, so he's home every single night, and that is a positive because the kids and I, some seasons he was gone more than others, and so it's been awesome having him home every night. So that's a positive. Another positive is I was able to be at home in March through over the summer, so I could really focus on my recovery. It was really difficult for me to get around on campus, and I had to worry about ice and just being unstable on my feet. And so that was a positive. I could just be at home, and I didn't have to worry about falling, and I could work on my therapy whenever it worked for me. Really connecting with friends. We have my college friends and we all have a Facebook group chat, and we just send funny pictures or update each other. And so that's fun. Just like, I don't think we probably would have maybe we had it set up already, but we wouldn't probably communicate as often because you just get busy being able to go places and doing things. And now it's really slowing you down and being intentional about your time and what you do with it, and gives us each opportunities. And plus the memes are great with 2020. And so there's always fun memes to share. That's a positive. So many hilarious memes. I think maybe that should be an assignment in one of my classes, is like, who could come up with the funniest meme for leadership class?
Kara, would you do that assignment, Kara? Since I don't know if you're still here, but you were here once, so I'm throwing it out there. Would you do a meme assignment? share your best GIF. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I know. That's an assignment I have rolling around in my head. Those were the things that I just kept thinking about in preparing for this, of like, what do I do? And just trying to think about what the positives are.
That's awesome. And like I said, it's been a year for everyone, but you had an added thing on the front side of it too. And Kara says anything for Kim, so apparently she's in. Okay, real quick sidebar here. It has been chilly, and there is this bee that is always around whenever I come out here to do this. It's never around unless I'm on a live cast of some sort, and then it shows up, and I thought it would have been gone by now, and I swear it's the same bee, and it just likes to torment me. So if I run off screen for a second, I'll be back.
Okay.
I don't think I'll just tank the sting if he gets there, but he hasn't done anything. He just hovers around and makes me uncomfortable. Neither here nor there. I know we're kind of getting ready to close up here, Kim, because you've still got classes today, and hopefully some of your students are watching this, and we'll ask you some pointed questions. But what are some things that you would recommend? You kind of talked about some things that you saw are positives already this year, but what advice would you give to someone who's maybe struggling or is looking to be a leader and wants to know how to handle the difficulties they're going to face?
Good questions. I think just talking to others. I have communication as one of my top 5. So I like to talk to others. That's how I learn and how I connect with others, is talking to people. So I like to talk to people that are in similar situations as me. Like this weekend, I text all my friends and I was like, do you just feel kind of like in a funk this last couple weeks? Like, oh yay, another day. I just get up and I do the same thing over and over again. Like, oh yay, I'm teaching the same lesson again. And they all were like, yes, I feel that way. And so it was just nice to know, like, it wasn't me that just was feeling, because sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm the only one feeling this way. But it was nice to know that other people are experiencing the same things. So then you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not off par on what I'm thinking or feeling. So for me, that helps. So maybe just talking to others. I know one of my friends creates a gratitude journal. That's something she does, and just stops and thinks about what she's thankful for of what she has. And that's something that she does. I'm trying to think. I'm not a counselor, so I don't really have any sort of counseling background on how to help in that way. But those are the things that come immediately to mind.
I love that. And
exercise, sleep. Exercise and sleep. Everything is better with sleep. I like feel sorry for the students that always have to have me after I have a kid, because it's like zombie crazy emotional Kim. So I feel bad for any of you that had me after my children, because sleep deprivation is just like a horrible thing, and it turns you into a monster. People say have kids. They don't have kids when they say that. They don't have kids. No, they don't.
I mean, I haven't got enough sleep in 4 years, so I get that. I understand. Well, Kim, thank you for being on here. And I wanted, just before we close out, I had just a couple last minute things to tidy up here on our live cast. First off, October is Depression Screening Month, and today is actually National Depression Screening Day. So there are a lot of resources out there. You can even Google, depression screening self-assessment and find the PHQ, I believe it's the abbreviated PHQ-9 or PQH-9. One of those are the right letters. But just take a look and think about those in your realm, and how you can, anyone watching now or later, how you can be caring for those in your community and keeping an eye out for people who might be struggling. We know that this is a time where anxiety and depression are high. We're in a constant state of wondering what's next, and so look out for those in your community. Be aware of their needs. Today is, like I said, National Depression Screening Day, so want to bring that to light. And then lastly, want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Astrup Family Foundation and American Bank and Trust, for continuing to support the work we do with Lost&Found and with Voices of Resilience. So we'll be back next Thursday. Next couple of weeks, we have a cadre of some of them are former SDSU grads, but also they are counselors in a variety of realms, talking about their experiences. And so that we'll have a great way to just talk about resilience from another perspective as well. So Kim, thank you again for being here. I said half the time I feel like I just do these just so I can hang out with these awesome people that I've got to know over the years, and you are at the top of that list, Kim. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. This is my first Facebook Live event. So I'm just getting all sorts of technology experience this semester.
Look at us go. Facebook launched at SDSU when we were freshmen. So we're old, is what I'm hearing there. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, Kim, thank you for being here. I know you got to get to class. And everyone, we'll see you next Thursday. Have a great day.